Cadet Williams, you are hereby ordered to report to the medical bay for immediate life support intervention. Mia Williams paused mid-bite of her peanut butter sandwich, looking up at Supreme Commander Zillax with genuine confusion. Around her, 3,000 alien cadets from 47 different species sat in absolute silence. Their various forms of breathing apparatus, environmental suits, and life support systems humming with increased activity as stress responses kicked in across the massive assembly hall. Sir? I feel fine, Mia said, brushing crumbs off her academy uniform. Is this about that physics exam? Because I can explain the thing with the gravity calculations. Nobody move! The Supreme Commander's voice cracked across the hall's communication system, his four arms gesturing frantically at the assembled medical teams that had materialized from seemingly nowhere. Maintain minimum safe distance. We have a Category 12 biological impossibility in progress. Mia blinked. The Altarian cadet next to her, Cavell, she thought his name was, had gone completely rigid, his crystalline respiratory system cycling through what she'd learned meant mortal terror. Behind her, she could hear the distinctive whistling panic breathing of the Centauran delegation. Sir, I'm really not following. You are from Earth, Commander Zillax stated, his scanner readings projected on the massive display behind him. The numbers were flashing red in 17 different alien languages. Earth, designation Sol 3, classification status. His voice dropped to a horrified whisper that somehow carried across the entire hall. Class 12 Death World. Total environmental hostility rating maximum. Survival probability for known galactic species 0.00001%. Margin of error non-existent. Well, yeah, Mia said, taking another bite of her sandwich. Born and raised in Colorado? Why? The sound that erupted from the assembly hall defied description. 3,000 beings expressing existential horror simultaneously created a cacophony that had the emergency acoustic dampeners engaging automatically. The vegan representative in the front row toppled backward in a dead faint. 2 different species medical officers were frantically conferring in panicked clicks and whistles. Cadet Williams, the Supreme Commander continued, his voice shaking. Earth's atmospheric composition contains 21% diatomic oxygen. This concentration is sufficient to cause spontaneous combustion in 63% of known organic matter. The partial pressure alone should have liquefied your internal organs within minutes of your birth. Huh, Mia said thoughtfully. Is that why everyone keeps complaining about the air recyclers here being dangerously oxygen-rich? I thought they were just being dramatic. Medical Officer Sinara pushed through the crowd of emergency responders, her scanner trained on Mia from what she clearly considered a safe distance of 15 meters. Supreme Commander, I'm reading impossible data. This human cellular structure should have collapsed under Earth's gravitational pressure. She's from a planet with gravitational acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared. Her bone density should be powdered dust. Oh, that, Mia laughed, flexing her arm casually. Yeah, coming here was like someone turning the gravity way down. I keep accidentally jumping too high in the training sims. Yesterday, I overshot the obstacle course and had to grab onto the ceiling. Is that why everyone keeps staring when I do pull-ups? Pull-ups? Senior medical analyst Jataro's voice reached a pitch that had several species covering their auditory organs. You're performing voluntary muscle contractions against artificial gravity while your bone structure should be collapsing under its own weight? Well, sure. I mean, I was on the track team back home. Did a marathon last summer. That's about 42 kilometers of running. Not my best time, but it was pretty hot that day. The temperature readings from Mia's homeworld appeared on the display. The assembly hall erupted into fresh chaos as the numbers showed surface temperatures ranging from -40 to +50 Celsius across different regions and seasons. You survived temperature variations that span nearly 100 degrees. Commander Zillax's claws were scraping audibly against his command console. The thermal shock alone should cause cellular breakdown in any known biological matrix. I mean, it gets cold in winter. Mia shrugged. That's why we have jackets. And air conditioning for summer. Pretty standard stuff. Behind her, she heard what sounded like Cavell trying to perform some kind of emergency breathing exercise. His crystalline structure vibrating at frequencies she was pretty sure weren't supposed to happen. Medical Officer Sinara's scanner was now emitting warning beeps that were getting increasingly frantic. Supreme Commander, her metabolic readings are impossible. She's processing nutrients at rates that should cause immediate toxic overload. The chemical composition of what she's consuming. The scanner's alarm reached a crescendo. That substance contains proteins derived from plants that produce natural pesticides. Peanut butter, Mia explained helpfully. It's pretty good. My mom makes her own. She grows the peanuts in our backyard. You want some? Your family cultivates poison plants for recreational consumption? Jotaro had gone completely rigid, his sensory apparatus retracting in what Mia was beginning to recognize as species-wide panic response. They're not poisonous to us, Mia said, looking genuinely confused now. I mean, some people have allergies, but that's pretty normal. We have lots of plants. Mom's got a whole garden. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs. She grows these really hot peppers that make your mouth burn, but they're great in salsa. Chemical warfare agents, Sinara whispered, her scanner now smoking slightly. You consume chemical warfare agents as recreational flavoring. I wouldn't call hot sauce chemical warfare, Mia laughed. Though my dad does say Mom's habanero salsa could strip paint. That's just a joke, though. Habaneros rate 300,000 Scoville units. The voice came from somewhere in the back. Apparently, someone had looked it up. That's sufficient capsaicin concentration to cause respiratory failure in most species. Hey, they're medium hot, Mia said. My little sister can eat them, and she's only 12. Now, ghost peppers, those have some kick to them. The emergency medical teams were now conferring in what looked like a panic huddle. Commander Zillax had activated what Mia assumed was some kind of crisis management protocol, because alarms were going off, and she could see additional command staff filing into the observation deck. Cadet Williams, the Supreme Commander said slowly, your planet's surface is bombarded with solar radiation at levels sufficient to cause genetic damage to most known life forms. How do you exist? Sunscreen, Mia offered. SPF 30 is usually enough, though I burn pretty easy, so sometimes I go with 50. My friend Jessica, she barely needs any, gets a great tan. Some people are just built different, you know? The silence that followed was broken only by the increasingly frantic medical equipment and what sounded like several different species trying to recalibrate their fundamental understanding of biological possibility. Sir, Mia said, raising her hand again. Not to be rude, but is this going to take much longer? I've got advanced Xenobiology in an hour. And Professor R. Hill said there'd be a quiz on atmospheric composition requirements for different species. I actually studied for this one. The emergency medical bay had been hastily converted into what looked like a cross between a research laboratory and a quarantine facility. Mia sat on the examination table, swinging her legs while 12 different species' top medical experts aimed increasingly sophisticated scanning equipment at her from behind reinforced barriers. "The readings are consistent," Dr. Vexthul announced, his tentacles manipulating 3 separate data displays simultaneously. Cadet Williams's cellular structure is operating within normal parameters for her species, despite existing in conditions that would terminate 99.7% of known biological entities within hours. "Define normal parameters," demanded Chief Medical Officer Azila, her fur standing on end in a way that Mia had learned meant deeply disturbed. "Because according to galactic biological standards, nothing about this human's existence should be possible." Mia raised her hand politely. "Can I ask what specifically is supposed to be killing me? Because honestly, this place feels pretty comfortable. The gravity's light, the air's clean, temperature's perfect. It's like a really nice day back home." "A really nice day?" Dr. Vexthul's voice reached a pitch that made several of the monitoring devices spark. "Cadet Williams, your homeworld's atmospheric pressure is 14.7 pounds per square inch at sea level. We've measured locations on your planet where the pressure differential would cause explosive decompression in any known species." "Oh, you mean like when you go up in the mountains?" Mia nodded. "Yeah, your ears pop and you get a little winded until you adjust. I went hiking in the Rockies last summer, got up to about 14,000 feet. The view was incredible, though I had to take more breaks than usual. 14,000 feet of elevation variance." Azila's claws were leaving gouges in her data tablet. "That's a pressure differential sufficient to cause catastrophic organ failure. I mean, some people get altitude sickness," Mia said, "but most folks adjust pretty quick. My buddy Jake, he's from Denver. That's like a mile above sea level already. So high altitude never bothers him. He went mountain climbing in Nepal a few years ago. Everest Base Camp, I think." The medical team exchanged glances that conveyed volumes of species-specific terror. "Everest," Dr. Vexthul said slowly, consulting what appeared to be a rapidly expanding file on Earth's geographical features, "has a summit elevation of 29,000 feet above sea level. The atmospheric pressure at that altitude is..." His tentacles went completely still. "1/3 of surface pressure. Oxygen partial pressure insufficient to maintain consciousness in any known biological system." "Well, yeah, that's why they use oxygen tanks," Mia explained. "Though some people can do it without them. There's this whole thing about acclimatization and training. Pretty impressive, actually. They voluntarily ascend to altitudes that guarantee death as a recreational activity." Azila's medical scanner had started emitting what sounded like electronic screaming. "I wouldn't say it guarantees death," Mia said. "I mean, it's dangerous, sure, but people do it all the time. There's like a whole season when climbers go up there. Traffic jams on the mountain and everything. Senior Xenobiologist Ginix materialized in the medical bay via emergency transport, his emergency response kit clattering as he set it down. I came as soon as I received the alert. We have confirmed biological impossibility? Worse, Azila said grimly. We have confirmed biological impossibility that considers itself normal and has siblings. Ginix's sensory stalks oriented toward Mia with the slow precision of someone trying to process incomprehensible data. Siblings? Oh yeah, I've got a little sister, Mia said brightly. Emma. She's 12, plays soccer, really good at math. Way better than me, honestly. She's probably going to be an engineer or something. A 12-year-old human exists on this death world, Ginnick said, slowly, and participates in competitive physical activities. Well, yeah. Kids play sports. Soccer's pretty big back home, lots of running around, good exercise. Emma's team made it to regionals last year. I was so proud. Running, Dr. Vexthul repeated. Extended cardiovascular exertion in an atmosphere containing toxic levels of oxygen, under gravitational pressure that should prevent locomotion, across terrain subject to your planet's temperature extremes. I mean, they have water breaks, Mia said. And sometimes games get canceled if it's too hot. Like when it hits 100 degrees Fahrenheit. 100 degrees Fahrenheit is 40 degrees Celsius, Azila shrieked. That's above the boiling point of several known biological fluids. It's pretty hot, Mia agreed. That's why they cancel games. Though my grandma says when she was a kid, they just played through it. Different times, I guess. Anyway, Emma's gotten really good. She's thinking about trying out for the travel team next year. Ginnick was frantically consulting multiple databases simultaneously. Cadet Williams, you mentioned your grandmother. Are you suggesting that humans maintain extended lifespans on this death world? Oh, Grandma Betty? Yeah, she's 86, still going strong. Lives by herself, tends her own garden, drives herself to church every Sunday. She's actually tougher than most of us. Grew up during some pretty rough times. She tells stories about walking to school in blizzards that would shut down half the state now. Blizzards, Dr. Vexthul said faintly. Defined as, heavy snow, high winds, really cold temperatures, like -20, 30 degrees. Grandma says they didn't have snow days back then. If the school was open, you went. She walked 3 miles each way. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of multiple medical devices entering what appeared to be cascading system failures. -30 degrees Celsius, Ginnick whispered, is below the flash freezing point of most biological tissues. An elderly human traversed multiple kilometers in these conditions, regularly, as a child. Well, you bundle up, Mia said. Good coat, warm boots, hat and gloves. Common sense stuff. Though Grandma says kids today are too soft, she might be right. I complain when it hits 0. Chief Medical Officer Azila slowly set down her scanner, which had begun emitting smoke. Cadet Williams, I need you to understand something. Every condition you've described as normal represents a level of environmental hostility that would kill every single being in this room within minutes. Your casual mention of family members thriving in these conditions suggests that not only are humans impossibly resilient, but that this resilience is so common among your species that you consider it unremarkable. I mean, we're all just regular people, Mia said. Nothing special about us. Earth's home, You adapt to where you live. Adaptation implies gradual biological adjustment to environmental pressures. Ginnick's voice reached frequencies that had the universal translator struggling. You're describing thriving in conditions that exceed every known biological tolerance threshold simultaneously. Mia looked genuinely puzzled. But if we couldn't live there, how would we have evolved there in the first place? The question hung in the air like a detonated philosophical bomb, and Mia could practically see the moment. When 12 different species' top medical minds realized their entire understanding of biological possibility might need fundamental revision. The emergency session of the Galactic Medical Consortium had been convened in the Academy's largest conference chamber, with holographic participation from medical experts across 17 sectors. Mia sat at what she was told was a safe observation distance behind a force field, watching aliens frantically gesture with appendages, tentacles, and energy manipulators, while their translation matrices worked overtime. The preliminary findings are conclusive, announced Consortium Director Kale Thas, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of medical practice. Every established principle of Xenobiology must be reconsidered in light of this human's existence. Reconsidered? Dr. Lier-Anna's bioluminescent patches flickered in patterns Mia had learned meant barely controlled panic. Director, this human's biology violates the fundamental laws of cellular cohesion under extreme gravitational stress. Her existence shouldn't just be impossible. It should be mathematically inconceivable. Mia raised her hand from behind the barrier. Sorry, could I say something? Because I think there might be some kind of misunderstanding here. The entire assembly turned toward her with expressions ranging from scientific fascination to existential dread. Cadet Williams, Director Kyle Thas said carefully, we would welcome any clarification you might provide regarding your species' apparent immunity to the basic laws of physics. Well, that's just it, Mia said, leaning forward in her chair. We're not immune to physics. We're just adapted, I guess. Like, you keep talking about Earth like it's this impossible hellscape, but it's really pretty nice. I mean, we've got problems like anywhere else, but it's home. Senior research analyst Zoranix consulted his datapad with what Maya was beginning to recognize as the universal gesture for trying to make impossible numbers make sense. Cadet Williams, our records indicate that Earth experiences regular seismic activity, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. How do human populations survive geological instability that would devastate most civilizations? We build stuff to withstand earthquakes, Mia said. And we don't usually build cities right next to active volcanoes. I mean, some people live in those areas, but they know the risks. My cousin Lisa lives in California. They get earthquakes pretty regularly, but mostly they're just little ones. She says you get used to it. Get used to the planet literally shaking beneath your feet? Dr. Vexthul's tentacles were tied in what appeared to be knots of disbelief. I mean, yeah. Big ones are scary, sure, but most earthquakes are just like the ground wobbles a bit and maybe some stuff falls off shelves. Lisa keeps earthquake kits, water, food, first aid supplies, just basic preparation stuff. Consortium Director Kale Thas exchanged glances with his senior staff. Cadet Williams, you're describing disaster preparedness for planetary-scale catastrophic events as basic preparation. Well, what else are you going to do? Mia shrugged. You can't stop earthquakes, so you prepare for them. Same with hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, blizzards. I mean, that's just life. You check the weather, you have emergency supplies, you help your neighbors when stuff happens. Hurricanes? The voice came from Dr. Janira in the back of the assembly. Are you referring to large-scale atmospheric disturbances? Yeah, big storms. Lots of wind and rain. Can be pretty destructive if they hit populated areas. But we track them, evacuate when we need to, and then come back and rebuild afterward. My friend Mark's family has been through like 5 hurricanes. They're from Florida. They've got the whole process down to a science. research specialist R. Hill was frantically cross-referencing atmospheric data. According to our meteorological analysis, Earth classification hurricanes involve sustained winds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour, with precipitation levels that would cause catastrophic flooding on most worlds. That's just a Category 1, Mia said. The really big ones, Category 4 or 5, those get pretty serious. But even then, most people ride them out okay if they're prepared. Though, if you're in a mobile home or something, yeah, you definitely want to evacuate. You have residential structures specifically designed to be mobile? Ginnicks's sensory stalks were vibrating at frequencies that suggested his worldview was undergoing structural failure. Oh, like trailers? Yeah, they're cheaper housing, but not great for severe weather. That's why they have shelters and evacuation procedures. Mia paused, looking at the assembled aliens' expressions. Are you guys okay? You all look kind of stressed. Cadet Williams, Director Kael'thas said slowly. Every environmental hazard you've described as normal represents an extinction-level event for most known civilizations. Your casual mention of survival strategies for these conditions suggests that humans have not merely adapted to surviving on a death world. You've developed an entire culture around thriving despite constant existential threats. I wouldn't say constant, Mia protested. Most days are pretty normal. You get up, go to work or school, hang out with friends, watch TV. It's not like we're fighting for survival every minute. But the capability exists, Dr. Lear-Anna observed, her bioluminescence now pulsing in rapid, anxious patterns. When faced with planetary-scale disasters, humans implement organized response protocols. Well, yeah, we help each other out. When Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, people came from all over the country to help with rescue and cleanup. Same with wildfires, tornadoes, earthquakes. When stuff gets bad, people show up. Senior analyst Zoranix looked up from his increasingly frantic calculations. Cadet Williams, you're describing voluntary deployment into disaster zones. Humans willingly enter areas of active catastrophic destruction to provide aid? Of course, Mia said, looking genuinely puzzled by the question. What else would we do? Just leave people to deal with disasters alone? That's not... you help. That's what you do. The conference chamber fell into a silence so complete that Mia could hear the atmospheric processors cycling. Director, Dr. Vex Thule said quietly, we may need to completely restructure our understanding of survival psychology. This human is describing altruistic behavior in the face of planetary-scale disasters as normal social expectations. It is normal, Mia said. Not everyone can help with everything. Not everyone's trained for search and rescue or whatever. But people donate money, supplies, volunteer time. My mom's church group makes care packages for disaster relief. My dad donated blood after 9/11, even though we lived nowhere near New York. It's just what you do. Director Kael'thas stood slowly, his ancient frame seeming to carry the weight of paradigms collapsing in real time. Ladies, gentlemen, and fellow beings, I believe we are witnessing the complete failure of our biological classification systems. We are not merely dealing with a species that can survive on a Class 12 death world. We are dealing with a species that has developed cooperative social structures specifically designed to thrive, despite their planet actively trying to kill them. And, Mia added helpfully, we've got really good pizza. The sound that emerged from the assembly could only be described as the collective whimper of scientific certainty dying. The Ultimate Crisis Council had been assembled for the first time in galactic history. Representatives from every major species, their most senior military commanders, and what amounted to the greatest scientific minds in known space. Mia found herself sitting at the center of a massive amphitheater, still behind protective barriers, while beings who had never agreed on anything in recorded history stared at her with unified expressions of existential terror. "Before we proceed," announced Supreme Council Director Tilana, her crystalline voice carrying across the vast chamber, "I want to ensure we all understand the scope of what we're discussing. Cadet Williams, would you please confirm for the record that everything you've told us about Earth represents normal conditions for your species?" Mia looked around at the assembled representatives, some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy hanging on her every word, and felt increasingly confused by the whole situation. "I mean, yeah, I'm not like special or anything. I'm just a regular person from Colorado." "Regular," repeated Fleet Admiral Korvax, his battle-scarred carapace clicking nervously. "Cadet Williams, you've described surviving conditions that would kill our most elite military units within hours. You consider this normal?" "Well, I've never been in the military," Mia said. "But my neighbor's son just got back from his second deployment in Afghanistan. That's pretty harsh terrain. Desert, mountains, extreme temperatures. He said it was tough, but he and his unit managed okay. They're trained for it." "Trained," whispered tactical analyst Sylar. "Your species trains to operate in environments that exceed our survival parameters." "I guess?" Maya shrugged. "I mean, soldiers train for all kinds of conditions. Desert, jungle, Arctic, urban environments. My high school friend Sarah joined the Marines. She did training exercises in places like Death Valley, which is like really, really hot and dry. She said it sucked, but it was doable with proper preparation." Scientific Director Vexia leaned forward, her energy field flickering with what Mia had learned meant intense focus. "Death Valley. The name itself suggests lethal conditions." "Yeah, it can hit like 130 degrees Fahrenheit in summer," Mia said. "That's why they call it Death Valley. But it's more about being unprepared. If you go out there without water and proper gear, yeah, that's dangerous. But people visit all the time. There's a whole tourist industry." "Tourist industry?" The collective gasp from 3,000 beings created a sound like atmospheric decompression. "Recreational visitation to lethal environments. It's actually pretty cool," Mia said enthusiastically. "Amazing rock formations, unique ecosystem, incredible night skies because there's no light pollution. My family went there on vacation when I was 15. We saw the sunrise at Zabriskie Point. Absolutely gorgeous." Supreme Council Director Tilana's crystalline structure was resonating at frequencies that suggested deep structural stress. "Your family unit voluntarily entered lethal conditions for aesthetic appreciation?" "And education," Mia nodded. "It's a national park. We learned about geology, desert adaptation, indigenous history. Really fascinating stuff. Though we definitely brought lots of water and stayed in our air-conditioned car most of the day." Fleet Admiral Korvax consulted his tactical display with shaking claws. "Cadet Williams, our analysis suggests that human military training includes deliberate exposure to conditions that would constitute biological warfare attacks against most species." "Biological warfare?" Mia looked genuinely confused. "Like what?" extreme temperature variations, toxic atmospheric compositions, gravitational stress, psychological pressure, nutritional deprivation. Oh, you mean like basic training? Mia interrupted. Yeah, that's supposed to be tough. Builds character, teamwork, physical fitness. My cousin Jake went through Army Basic, said it was the hardest thing he'd ever done, but also one of the most rewarding. Made lifelong friends. Made friends, tactical analyst Zlar repeated faintly. During biological warfare simulation training. It's not biological warfare, Mia protested. It's just getting people ready for real situations, teaching them to work together under pressure, stay calm when things get crazy, look out for each other. Important skills. Scientific Director Vexia's energy field was now pulsing in patterns that looked distinctly panicked. Cadet Williams, you've mentioned that humans voluntarily undergo extreme physical training, live in disaster-prone areas, work in hazardous conditions, and consider all of this normal social behavior. I mean, not everyone, Mia said. Plenty of people live pretty quiet lives. My Aunt Margaret works in an office, lives in the suburbs. Biggest excitement in her life is her book club. But even she keeps a first aid kit in her car and knows CPR. CPR? Inquired Research Director Jotaro. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. You know, if someone's heart stops or they stop breathing, you can sometimes get them going again. Chest compressions, rescue breathing. Pretty basic emergency skill. They teach it in high school health class. The silence that followed was so profound that Mia could hear the life support systems of individual beings cycling. Your educational system, Supreme Council Director Talana said slowly, includes mandatory training in preventing death from catastrophic biological system failure. Well, yeah, Mia said. I mean, you never know when you might need it. Better to know and not need it than need it and not know it, right? Same reason we learn basic first aid, fire safety, what to do in emergencies. Just common sense preparation. Fleet Admiral Korvac stood slowly, his massive form trembling. Ladies, gentlemen, and fellow beings, I believe we must face an uncomfortable truth. We are not dealing with a species that merely survived on a Class 12 death world. We are dealing with a species that evolved on a Class 12 death world and developed it into a functioning civilization with educational systems, recreational activities, and social support networks. And really good food, Mia added. I mean, we've figured out how to cook pretty much everything. Pizza, tacos, sushi, barbecue, ice cream. Though, I guess ice cream might not work for everyone here. Different metabolisms and all. Director Talana's crystalline structure let out what could only be described as a harmonic sigh. The implications for galactic exploration and colonization are staggering. Worlds we have written off as uninhabitable might be perfectly viable with human consultation. Oh, like Mars? Mia asked. We're working on that. SpaceX has some pretty cool plans. Elon thinks we might have a colony going in the next couple decades. Should be fun. I've always wanted to try low-gravity sports. Mars, whispered Scientific Director Vexia. You're planning to colonize additional death worlds, voluntarily, for recreational purposes. Well, and as backup, Mia said practically. You know, in case something happens to Earth. Eggs in multiple baskets and all that. Plus, think of the scientific opportunities. New geology to study, potential for discovering life, incredible engineering challenges. Who wouldn't want to be part of that? The assembled council looked around at each other, and Mia could practically see the moment when the most powerful beings in the galaxy realized that their entire understanding of what constituted survivable conditions had just been revolutionized by a veterinary student who thought Death Valley made a nice family vacation. 6 months after what historians would later call the human revelation, the Galactic Military Academy had undergone the most comprehensive restructuring in its 1,000-year history. Mia Williams found herself standing in front of a classroom of alien cadets, a whiteboard behind her covered in what she still considered absolutely basic survival information. Okay, so today we're covering extreme environment adaptation, Mia said, uncapping a marker. Who can tell me the first rule of wilderness survival? Cadet Xelax raised a tentacle nervously. Maintain minimum safe distance from all environmental hazards. Well, that's not wrong, Mia said diplomatically. But it's more about preparation and assessment. The first rule is actually, don't panic. Panic makes you do stupid things, and stupid things get you killed. Anyone else? The Centauran cadet in the third row, Cavill, whistled hesitantly through his breathing apparatus. Immediate evacuation to controlled environment. Cavill, what if evacuation isn't possible? Mia asked gently. What if you're stranded somewhere and rescue is days away? The collective shudder that went through the classroom was something Mia had gotten used to. These cadets had been raised on worlds where environmental control was so complete that the concept of being stranded in uncontrolled conditions was essentially theoretical. The first rule, Mia continued, writing on the board, is stay calm and assess. You figure out what you have, what you need, and what your options are. My dad always said, you can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So you prioritize accordingly. Cadet Azila's fur was standing on end in what Mia had learned was her species' stress response. Instructor Williams, did you say 3 weeks without food? Well, that's kind of average, Mia said. Depends on your physical condition, environmental factors, activity level. Some people have survived longer. There was this guy who got trapped in a collapsed building after an earthquake. I think he went like 27 days with just occasional sips of water. 27 days, repeated Cadet Janira faintly. And he survived? Yeah, made a full recovery. Lost a lot of weight, obviously, but humans are pretty resilient when we have to be. Mia turned back to the board. Which brings us to today's practical exercise. The wave of terror that swept through the classroom was palpable. Now don't worry, Mia said quickly. We're not doing anything dangerous. We're just going to practice basic shelter building using Academy emergency supplies. Think of it as advanced problem solving. Through the classroom's observation window, Mia could see Supreme Commander Xelax and several other senior officers watching nervously. Ever since she'd been appointed as the Academy's first human survival instructor, her classes had become something of a spectacle. Today's observers included representatives from at least 6 different species, all taking notes frantically. Instructor Williams, Cadet Vexthul asked, when you say shelter building, do you mean construction of permanent habitation structures? More like temporary protection from environmental factors, Mia explained. Like if your ship crashed on an unexplored planet and you needed to survive until rescue arrived. You'd want something to keep you dry, maintain body temperature, protect from wind, maybe provide concealment if there are predators around. Predators? The collective shriek from her students made Mia wince. Not necessarily, she said quickly, but it's good to be prepared for different scenarios. Better to have a plan and not need it, right? In the observation area, she noticed Fleet Admiral Korvax making rapid notes while speaking into his communicator. Over the past few months, Mia had learned that her routine survival tips were being analyzed by military strategists across the galaxy as potential tactical advantages. Okay, let's head to the practical training area, Mia said, leading her class toward what had been hastily converted from a standard equipment storage room into what the Academy called the Environmental Challenge Facility. To Mia, it looked like a basic obstacle course with some camping gear scattered around. Your scenario, Mia announced as her students filed nervously into the space, is this. Your exploration vessel has experienced catastrophic system failure and made an emergency landing on an uncharted world. Environmental conditions are within tolerable ranges, but your life support is damaged and rescue won't arrive for 72 hours. Your goal is to create sustainable shelter using available materials. She gestured to the scattered supplies: emergency blankets, rope, basic tools, various containers. Standard Academy emergency kit. Work in teams of 3, and remember, the point isn't to build the fanciest shelter. It's to build something that works. What followed was 45 minutes of the most tentative, over-engineered shelter construction Mia had ever witnessed. Her students approached each task as if the materials might explode, consulted multiple times about whether their designs would be structurally sufficient, and generally treated basic knot tying like advanced nuclear physics. Cadet Xilax, Mia called, walking over to where the Altarian was attempting to tie what appeared to be 17 different knots in a single piece of rope. What are you trying to accomplish here? Maximum structural integrity, Xilax replied, his tentacles working frantically. If any single connection point fails, the entire shelter could collapse, resulting in exposure to environmental hazards. Okay. But look, Mia said, taking the rope and demonstrating. Sometimes simple is better. One good bowline knot here, couple of half hitches there, and you've got something that'll hold up to pretty much anything you'd encounter, see? She had the basic framework up in about 30 seconds. Xilax stared at it like she'd performed magic. But what if the tensile strength is insufficient? He asked. Then you adjust. Mia shrugged. Add another support here, guy line there. The point is to start with something that works and improve it as needed, not to design the perfect shelter in your head first. From across the room, Cadet Keevel's team had managed to construct what looked more like a geometric art installation than a shelter. Mia walked over, trying to keep her expression neutral. Interesting design, she said diplomatically. How do you get inside? The 3 cadets looked at each other with expressions of dawning horror. We focused on structural optimization, Keevel admitted. We may have overlooked functional accessibility. No worries, Mia said. That's why we practice. How would you modify this design to include an entrance? Watching her students puzzle through basic problem-solving that Earth children figured out building blanket forts, Mia reflected on how much the galaxy had changed in just 6 months. Exploration protocols had been completely rewritten. Military survival training now included human consultants. 3 different species had requested formal treaties specifically to gain access to human survival methodologies. Most remarkably, colonization efforts had expanded to include 17 worlds previously classified as uninhabitable. The Centauran expedition to Kepler 442b, using survival techniques adapted from human Arctic exploration, had successfully established their first permanent settlement last month. Instructor Williams? Cadet Azila approached hesitantly. I've been wondering, do humans find this kind of survival training enjoyable? Mia considered the question. Well, some do. There's a whole thing called survival camping where people go out into wilderness areas with minimal equipment just for fun. My Uncle Dave loves that stuff. Spends his vacation time hiking through places where there's no cell service, no roads, just him and basic gear. He does this voluntarily? Azila's eyes widened. For recreation? Yeah, says it's relaxing. Gets away from work stress, reconnects with nature, proves to himself he can still handle the basics. Mia smiled. Last year he hiked the Appalachian Trail. That's about 2,200 miles of wilderness hiking. Took him 5 months. The expression on Azila's face suggested she was trying to process the concept of walking 2,200 miles through uncontrolled environment for personal satisfaction. Instructor, she said slowly, I think I'm beginning to understand why the Council classified humans as a strategic resource. Outside the training facility, Mia could see construction crews working on the new wing that would house the Academy's expanded Extreme Environment Studies program. Applications had been flooding in from across the galaxy, beings who wanted to learn what humans considered basic survival skills. All right, everyone, Mia called, checking her watch. Let's wrap up for today. For next week's class, I want you to research one example of how your species handles emergency situations on your homeworld. We'll compare different approaches to problem solving under stress. As her students filed out, discussing their assignments in hushed, slightly awed tones, Mia packed up her materials and prepared for her next class. Advanced Human Problem-Solving Methodologies, which was attended by senior military officers and had a waiting list 3 months long. Her communicator chimed with a message from home, a video from her sister Emma's soccer team, now famous across the galaxy as examples of juvenile humans performing athletic feats in Earth-standard gravity. Emma had no idea that her penalty kick technique was being studied by xenobiologists as an example of impossible physical coordination under extreme environmental stress. Hey, Mia. Emma's voice came through the speaker as Mia walked toward her next classroom. Hope you're having fun at space school. Mom says to tell you she's sending another care package. She included some of those hot peppers you like. Love you. Mia smiled, slipping the communicator back into her pocket as she approached a classroom where 47 of the galaxy's most senior military strategists waited to learn what she still thought of as basic common-sense problem-solving. Sometimes she still couldn't quite believe that the entire galaxy considered her remarkable for doing things that every human she'd ever known took completely for granted. But hey, if it meant humans got to explore the stars and help other species push the boundaries of what they thought possible, she was happy to teach advanced sandwich construction to alien tactical officers who approached peanut butter and jelly like it was explosive ordnance. After all, as her dad always said, you help where you can, and you adapt to where you are. Even if where you are happened to be the center of a galactic paradigm shift